Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Private Practice with Soul podcast. This is the first podcast for counselors that just don't align with the traditional approaches to business and that want to use their spiritual gifts, talents, and interests to create, you guessed it, a private practice with soul. So, look, leave it to me to provide you with everything you need, including strategies that you can use to increase your income, reduce your workload, and of course, increase inquiries and referrals to your beautiful soul-led private practice. I love it so much. If you haven't done it already, grab your journal, grab your pen, and let's begin. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Private Practice with Soul podcast. Today we're going to talk about niching, which I love. I know not everybody does, but I do, and I'm going to tell you why. Because, well, so many reasons. First off, niching is the best thing ever because I get to fill up my diary every single day with clients that I love working with, that I feel energized by. Like, I come away from my sessions and I'm bouncing, and I often say to clients that I'm working with, can you believe we get to do this? Like, really, can you believe that we get to do this? And I never, ever, ever knew that private practice could be so, well, I don't know that fun is the right word, but so energizing and just feel so lit up. And I didn't have that until I had a niche. So there's that. The other thing too is when you're filling up your diary with soulmate clients, like doing the work that you love to do, it doesn't actually feel like work, which is such a cliche, but it's actually true. And yeah, it's just like your highest joy. And I think when you're excited about who you're going to work with or you're looking forward to helping that person, it makes such a big difference to how you show up because it really does impact your energy, right? And yeah, I think too, there are big business benefits, say that 10 times quickly, to niching. And, I say this all the time. If you're not getting referrals, it's because you're not referable. And I don't say that to be mean. I say that because I want to help you. What do I mean by referable? By referable, I have to know why I'm going to send somebody to you, right? Because do you know what? It might surprise you to know, but the actual thing is that counselors referring to each other is the biggest source of referrals in our industry. It's not that we're all getting them from doctors and we're not all getting them from insurers or anything like that. Most of our referrals are going to come from people in our online groups, people in our counseling communities, in our therapeutic networks, all of that sort of stuff. So if I don't, as your peer, know what you actually do, I can't refer anyone to you. So I see this so much when people say, I help everybody and I do all of the things. I can't refer anybody to you if you're saying that you help everyone and you do all of the things. If I've got a client sitting in front of me who I said on the last episode, I gave the example, I think, of somebody who was on the spectrum, an adolescent who was on the spectrum and had a dual diagnosis of ADHD, for example. I know exactly who I'm going to send that person to because that counselor or that private practice is going to be a private practice that's all about, hey, we work with adolescents on the spectrum who also have ADHD. Now, you might be saying, well, I help everyone do everything using all of the therapies. There's no way you can be doing all of that. First off, and second off, it's not specific enough. You're not specializing in anything. So why am I going to send my client to someone who's so general? I want to send my client where they're going to get, the support they actually need. And so when you are being very vague and you are being so broad in your advertising, you're going to have a hard time filling your diary. The reality is that it's by having a niche that you start to attract clients because clients know who you are, how you help, what you stand for. I think some counsellors struggle because of limiting beliefs that they have that they end up projecting onto their business, which then ends up being projected onto their potential clients. For example, some people will say to me, when I say, oh, you've ticked all the boxes on your Psychology Today profile about all the different things that you can help with, like you've got depression, anxiety, sexual dysfunction, relationships, grief, this, that, ADHD, autism. And people will say, well, I can do all of that. And I think, yes, but you're not specializing in anything. It's not a matter of what can you do. But nobody's saying you can or you can't. But when you're saying you do all of the things, you're actually saying, well, I don't actually do anything really. I'm a generalist. And what's going to happen is you're going to get general people coming to you based on your price instead of based on what you actually do. Because when you're not specializing, when you don't have a niche, what happens is you end up, without being aware of it, of being in a price competition with other counsellors who are also not specialising, because now we've got a potential client sitting here in front of Google going, oh, well, okay, 10 practices that I'm looking at say they do all the things for all the ages and all the, diagnosis and blah, 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 blah. Well, I guess if they all do everything, I'm just going to go with the cheapest. And they're going to pick you because you're the cheapest practice. And then guess what's going to happen? You're going to have, short-term clients who don't stick around long. You're going to have clients who no-show, who you've got to chase for cancellations, who you need to get debt collection onto if you're, set up for debt collection and that's part of your thing. Whatever. And you're not going to be loving what you're doing, and it's going to feel hard, and you're going to be saying, I've got so many gaps in my diary. Where are all my clients? Like, I'm letting them know that I'm here and I can do all the things. So the practices that are really successful have a niche, and they stand for something. Now, it doesn't have to be. Here's what I want you to know. Hang on. I'm just making a note for myself. Okay. Here's what I want you to know. There's a limiting belief that says I'm not going to get any clients if I niche. There's also another limiting belief that says I don't want to deny people services. I don't even know where this thought came from or where this thought originated, but it has permeated some of the counselling groups that I'm in online. It's like this thing about it's not okay to deny people who really need it your service, and if you can help, No, I disagree. I think that it's not your job to be available to help all the people all the time. Those clients who need help are better served or best served by somebody who specializes in helping with that kind of problem. So if, for example, you specialize in holistic counseling for women who've been through trauma, and you get a adolescent come through who's getting bullied, well, you got two things that you got a few options, right? Two options come to mind. First off, you can say that you see them if you want. You don't have to deny anybody anything. So if you want to see them, yes, absolutely, you can. The other thing that I want you to know, though, is it's okay for you to say, do you know what? This is not my field of expertise, but I'm connected in a community of other therapists, other counselors. If you like, I can put the feelers out and see if there's somebody in our area that does specialize in, bullying, like school-based bullying, and get you some support. Would that be okay? And then you come into the groups and you say, hey, I've got, a potential referral here. I've got an adolescent client who's needing some support for bullying at school. Is there somebody who's, specializing in this area or familiar with this work and can take on a client? So I think that it's always best to stick with what your area of expertise is. And no, you're not an expert in everything. you will have an inclination, or you will have a skill set, you will have a passion for one thing a little bit more than everything else, and maybe that's what you focus on. So that's the other thing that we need to be aware of with niching. You're not denying anybody any services. I think it's probably not great if you are just filling your diary with anyone and everyone, because that's telling me that you're operating from a scarcity mindset, and that you're operating, perhaps, not always, but perhaps you're operating based on the income, or based on the turnover. I need it for my diary so I can pay the rent and pay myself. There's nothing wrong with that, in some ways, but in other ways, there's a whole lot wrong with that, because you're not the best person to be helping that client. And if you really want to help them, you'd be referring them on to a specialist. So a few things come up there, and you have to really think about the ethics of taking on people that aren't aligned with your practice, that aren't aligned with your philosophy around health and well-being. Do you know what I mean? That aren't aligned with your area of interest. So how do you find an area of interest when you feel competent in helping everyone? I think there are a few ways to go about it. And I didn't niche for the longest time because I didn't know about niching, okay? Like, full transparency, I did not know about niching. I was such a late comer to Facebook. All these groups and societies and everything were out there already. I had no idea they even existed. I didn't know about niching. I was just sitting there in the bulk billing medical clinic, accepting anyone and everyone that walked through the door that didn't want to pay for a service. When I became private, so I started charging fees, again, I didn't have a niche because I didn't know about niching. And it was a real learning experience for me, as you've heard from other podcasts. What ended up happening, how I found my niche, was as a result of a big problem that happened in psychology a few years ago. And you've probably heard that story before, so I'm not going to go into it again. But that big problem caused, what for me at the time felt like a very real dark night of the soul. And from there, that whole world of early practices that I had growing up around runes, I Ching, oracle cards, angel cards, tarot, all of that sort of stuff, spirituality, made a resurgence in my life at the time. And I couldn't let it go. It was just so powerful, this calling within me, that I really wanted to find ways to incorporate it into what I was doing, see if I could, see what the rules were or weren't. And eventually, do you know what? The calling was just so strong for me that I knew that I was no longer in alignment with a medical model of working with clients, or a corporate model or a pharmaceutical model of working with clients. And I knew I needed to be able to work outside of that. And that's why I deregistered as a psychologist after 25 years, and with a PhD, I left the medical model of psychology and moved into counseling, where I had more, what do I want to say? Hang on, just bless me. Where I had more freedom, more space to be able to support people without the reliance on rushing people through treatment, which is very much what Medicare is all about. I didn't want to be rushing people through treatment. I wanted space to sit with them so they could process things in their own time. And I wanted to be able to talk with them about other things than diagnoses and treatment plans and stuff like that. And it was through connecting with that calling and allowing myself to trust the niggle, as Rebecca Campbell would say, like to trust that niggle, that my whole world opened up, and I became someone that stood for the integration of spiritual practices with private practice. And you know what? That was where I became a leader, and it was never my intention to become a leader, but it just happened. And, I love helping my clients, whether they're supervisees, mentees, coaches, students, people in my groups, I always now help through a spiritual framework, whether it's helping through a framework I created in private practice around the masculine and the feminine, or a framework around connecting with source or higher self, or supporting practitioners to connect with their own inner wisdom, so that they're not out there comparing themselves and suffering from the imposter syndrome that's so readily thrust upon them, So my niche, the way that I found mine was, if you'd said to me when I was working as a psychologist, hey, you need to choose a niche, I would have been open to it because I love learning, right? So I would have been like, oh, okay, what's this? Tell me about niches and what does that involve and how do you find one? But I didn't have that guidance. So for me, without knowing the steps, for me, it was a matter of, I had a life event happen that was pivotal, and that, they talk about your niche finding you, but it was this other way of being that found me, and it was me choosing to, stand up for it, even though I knew talking about spirituality was going to leave a bad taste in some people's mouths. Some people would say it's too woo. Some people would say there's no place for it. Some people would say it's not ethical. Some people would say, oh, you're bringing our profession into disrepute. We're all trying to get on Medicare and you're here leading the charge about spirituality, and that's, ruining things for us. So I knew that I was going to be up against some of all of that. But at the same time, when you know what your niche is, you know what your niche is, and you feel so grounded in that it doesn't really affect you what other people are doing or saying. And when you operate from that space of, and it's not confidence, it's just you're so grounded in your niche, that's how you attract people. So even now, people come and work with me for the spiritual approach. And I don't always say to them, hey, we're going to use a spiritual approach today. It's just the way I operate. I operate through that lens of what's in the highest good, what's my intention here, what's in the highest good for my client and for everybody else. Yes, sometimes I'll pull cards for, my students in workshops and stuff like that, of course. And yes, I do have a service on the side, like so apart from doing the things that I've just shared, one of the other things that I've been doing for the last 2 years is tarot readings for private practice owners, to give them insight about their business, because this really aligns with me. Of course it's Jungian, and of course it's about archetypes, and of course it's about symbols, but you know what, it's also about the subconscious mind. And you know what, when you walk into a busy room, who's the only person you can't see? It's you, right? You are the only person that you can't see. And that's why things like, for me, helping people through something like imagery that you might see in tarot cards or oracle cards or angel cards or whatever cards people want to use. And people bring cards to sessions now when they work with me. It's about unlocking that part of the subconscious mind that helps them to see what they can't see themselves. And that's priceless. And of course and you know what, if they say to me, oh, I'm doing all of this work and I'm not getting any results, that's so great for me to hear, because I can apply my masculine and feminine frameworks energetically to giving them some guidance around what to release, what to surrender, what to do less of, what to allow more of in, and, give them strategies to support them and processes to support them in doing all of that. So that's what I'm known for now. That's my niche now. I'm the one that integrates spiritual practice with private practice for private practice owners, right? So if you want to find your niche, and if I had to have my time over again, do you know what? I might not have even found my niche that I'm in now. It'll probably be something else. But my advice to you would be, you've got a couple of things. You can either look at what presenting problems or presenting challenges you really love working with. Like they're juicy, they get you so involved, you are so, like, you get really excited when you see this client in your diary because you love them. Like you love the journey they're on. You love the challenge they're working through. You love do you know what I mean? So if you're already seeing clients, what I'd love you to do is get your podcast journal and a pen and just jot down the name of, 3 to 5 clients that you really, 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 really love working with. And you know the ones I mean, the ones who are in your diary and you're like, yes, I'm so excited to see that person. I wonder where they're at today and I wonder how they're going. I want you to write their names down or their initials or something in your journal. And after the show, I want you to really think about what it is that you enjoy working with about them. Okay. Is it something to do with their personality? Is it something to do with the problem that they're coming along with? Is it something to do with the way that they show up for themselves? Like, just allow yourself to sit there and connect the dots, like see what they all have in common. The other thing that you can use to find your niche is looking at the solution. So maybe you get so lit up when you see people have an outcome, right? So like me, I'm a results-focused coach. I'm all about the results. I'm all about the results in Clients on Demand. I'm all about the results in, everything that I do, right? So I know one of the things that really lights me up is, hearing about people's results. So what do I have to do then to help them get results? How do I have to show up to help them get results? And what do I want to be known for? I want to be known for that spiritual woo coach over there that you absolutely have to work with because she wants you to get results, right? That's why I want people to come into me. But you think about the results that you want for your clients. So for me, I want them to feel confident. I want them to release imposter syndrome, fill their diaries, finally understand what marketing is and be equipped to market their practice without me. And all of that sort of stuff. They're the results that I want my clients to get. But have a think about the results you love hearing about with your clients. And maybe you become niched on the outcome. Okay, so maybe you become niched on the outcome. So what does that actually mean? Well, if, say, for example, you work with neurodivergent clients and they have trouble, completing tasks, for example, productivity issues, maybe the result that you love to get with them is that they can actually get things done. They can actually finish things. So maybe you become the counselor that gets that result, right? That focuses on supporting them to be able to get things done. See what I mean? So that's your second option. The third option is maybe you become known and reputed for the method that you use, right? So if you really love, let's say we've all learned a lot about all the different approaches. But maybe there's one approach that you really, really, really enjoy working with. So for me, that's transformational and it's soul psychology. But what is it for you? Is it going to be EMDR? Is it going to be polyvagal? Is it going to be something else altogether? And maybe your niche is the method that you use. And maybe you get known for being the person that uses that method. And that's your niche, right? And yes, you can, still see anybody in the, across the lifespan if you wanted to, because it's not going to matter as much because they're not coming to you for their lifespan. They're coming to you for the method that you use. So have a think about, what method do I really, 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 really enjoy doing? Is it hypnosis? Is it hypnotherapy? Is it walk and talk? Like, what do I want to be known for? If I got to choose to be known for one particular methodology, what would it be? Okay, and maybe that's your niche and that's your branding right there. Maybe you are the EMDR counselor. Maybe you are the polyvagal therapist. Maybe you are, do you know what I mean? Have a play around with it. And there are 3 ways that you can find your niche. Now, I would just want to caution people who subscribe to this idea of your niche will find you. I disagree with that because I think that whatever you put out, you're going to attract. So I think it always comes from you. If you persist in not niching, potentially it's going to take you a lot longer to fill your diary. It's going to take you a lot longer to get the turnover. Maybe you could find yourself in a position where you can't leave your part-time paid employment yet. And it's going to be frustrating and just not nice. But I think if you do have a niche, you absolutely set yourself up for success in private practice. Niching is so important. There's a lot of fear around it. I don't know why. It only creates positive things. So maybe the fear is the fear of success. You know, sometimes it's, I don't know if you've read this book. It's called The 21-Day Consciousness Cleanse. But anyway, it's broken up into 3 lots of 7 days. So my coach was talking about this recently on his podcast, and he was saying that the first 7 days are your past, the next 7 is your present, the next 7 is your future. And it talks about, where was I going with this? I've lost my train of thought. This always happens to me. If I can remember it, I'll come back to it. Oh, no, that's it. Yes, but if you're going to be in the past section of this book, the author's talking about how it can feel like Groundhog Day. Like you feel safe in yourself because it's the self that you know. It's very familiar, even though you're not loving it. It's kind of like you wear the same clothes all the time, you eat the same food all the time, you have the same routine. Nothing really changes, and it doesn't because, you know, you don't want to shift out of what feels familiar. So you want to start to break that habit and say, well, you know, if it feels familiar to me to be saying I do all the things for all of the people all of the time for all of the ages and it's not working, maybe I do need to break this habit, and maybe I do need to niche. And if you have any fear around it, maybe you need to talk with your supervisor or your coach or your mentor and get some support around your mindset, because all the strategies in the world, like, there are going to be people that listen to this podcast today and they're going to go, oh my gosh, this was exactly the information I needed to hear. There are going to be other people that listen to this podcast that aren't ready to change, and they'll say, nah, can't do it, disagree, not for me. I still am going to subscribe to the idea that it's denying services and it's this and it's that. And that's okay, you know, because we're all at different stages of the model of change, the cycle of change, okay? That's totally okay. Have to surrender and accept to where we are in this moment. But for those of you who have any doubts and you're still needing some guidance around it, tap me on the shoulder, let me know, and I'll be absolutely happy to support you with it in one of our groups. All right. Well, I hope you have an amazing weekend. Gabe is down at the hairdresser, having his hair cut. He's not a fan of getting groomed, little fella. So he's off there doing that. I think he's getting like cuts and, you know, whole treatments on his fur and everything. So for those of you who don't know, Gabe is my rescue fur baby. He's a Maltese cross meatball. Love him so much. Oh my gosh, this dog is just the best dog in the universe. We are so in love with each other. Anyway, so he's off doing that. Quick update on the renovations. Spa just got put in today, which is so exciting. Now I can get the inspection done and get that all ticked off. And then something else really cool is a duck came up to the window yesterday morning. So where I live in Mount Eliza, there's like heaps of established trees and like parks and stuff like that. And anyway, there was this duck and it came right across the front lawn and it came right up to the window of my study. And Gabe was just looking through the glass at this duck, and they were just looking at each other. He didn't bark at the duck didn't quack at him. They were just checking each other out, and they stood there checking each other out for a good minute or two. And then I moved because I dropped the remote control, and then the duck flew off. But so I ruined the magic moment. Those two were happy. But anyway, the duck just came back while I was recording the podcast, and maybe the duck is looking for Gabe and wondering where Gabe is because Gabe's not here. Anyway, I hope you all have like a really beautiful weekend, and thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Private Practice with Sol podcast. Bye. I hope that you loved this episode as much as I loved putting it together for you. To get more resources to help you in your private practice, head over to Instagram. My handle is @theprivatepracticecoach. And also, if you want more inquiries and referrals for your business, let me know. I have a program called Clients on Demand that opens every quarter, and I can absolutely get you some information for that as well. You are doing an amazing job. Thank you for sharing your gifts with the world. Bye.